根据2020年人口普查，阿拉米达县总人口超过了168万，在整个加州中人口排名第7。其中，阿拉米达县有32%为亚裔居民。目前的地检官是 Nancy O'Malley， 她已经担任了这个职位长达12年，并将于2023年正式卸任。
But we found many ways to be able to put those cases together, the hate crime cases, by finding other incidents. So it isn't just one incident, but there are other times when somebody has attacked a person who's Asian.
从殴打老人到抢劫妇女，2021年阿拉米达县有108宗仇恨犯罪被记录在案，其中包括伯克利、乌伦市等东湾几个主要城市。但实际生活中，仇恨暴力事件的发生却远远高于上报数字。为什么对仇恨犯罪的指控会这么难？袭击者在犯案后是否得到了应有的惩罚？大家好，欢迎收看《仇恨边缘》，我是主持人张欣怡。今天，天下卫视请到阿拉米达县地检官奥麦丽，她不仅仅连任2次，还是阿拉米达县第一位女性地检官。让我们一起和她来聊聊仇恨犯罪。Hi, dear O'Malley. How are you? Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming to our show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So you've been elected 3 times since 2010,
Yes.
working as DA of Alameda County, and as a matter of fact, you're also the first female in the office, right?
Right.
So what does that mean to you?
Well, I felt a level of responsibility for other women to open doors. It's been an important initiative of mine to advance women into leadership and, of course, recognizing the qualifications of women and men in the same assignment. But when I became the head of the office, the district attorney, there weren't that many women that were even the district attorneys around the state. About 4 years ago, I became the president of our statewide association for district attorneys. And when I became the president, 50% of the elected DAs were women.
Wow.
So I consider that a huge accomplishment, that we had more women willing to step up and run for election and get elected. And I do believe that the attributes that women bring to the workplace are different than men. Women, I think that, we're more aware of family issues and childcare and advancement and pay equity and things like that. And so those are all really important initiatives for me that I was very vocal and really put out there.
Yeah. So during these 12 years, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Well, I can't say I have one that I'm most proud of, but a couple of the things that we've accomplished. We opened the second Family Justice Center, which co-locates a lot of different businesses and organizations that provide support to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and children who have witnessed violence. And we are the second one in the country to open, and it's really thriving. We serve over 15,000 victims every year, and that was a huge accomplishment because it's been replicated around the country, around the world, really. People come from China, they come from India, they come from all over the United States to see how we're doing it. So that was a big accomplishment. Also, we created a lot of programs for individuals who have been caught up in the criminal justice system to be able to get the services they need to get out, to never come back as somebody who's been accused of crime. And that's, was a little controversial when we first started.
Yeah.
But I think I know that it's been very, very successful. Another accomplishment that I'm really proud of is just yesterday, actually, last night, the governor signed my 54th bill that's now a law in California. And then I have about 8 other bills that I was the primary person on. So we've changed legislatively And culturally, we've changed the way California engages with victims of crime, and particularly with victims of interpersonal violence.
According to the census of 2020, Alameda County has 1.6 million population,
Right.
and 32% are Asian. So how have you seen the county change over the decades?
Well, I think that the Asian population has gotten larger, for sure. They've also, the population, you know, it's as diverse as America is, and but really become much more vocal. I think that the Hispanic population has also become more vocal and more integrated with the community of Alameda County. South Asian population has grown pretty substantially, especially the Afghan population. And we've also seen a decrease in the African American population. So just in the demographics, it's been a very interesting transition. There's also a huge amount of development. So the population has jumped in the last couple of years by a couple of 100,000 people. And that's changed the dynamic, because now it's a much bigger county.
Yeah.
It's 800 square miles. And almost anywhere you go in the county now, you'll find housing and new developments and new populations.
So how have you seen the Asian hate crime during this 2 or 3 years under COVID?
Crime is up everywhere, including in our county. Even in parts of the county that never really experienced violent crime are experiencing now. But for sure in Oakland, where the larger population is, the crime that's targeted against Asian is just the unbelievable increases. So just last year, we served 359 individuals through our victim witness program. So those are individuals who are victims of crime, Asian descent, that were victims of crime. But of the cases that we actually charged, so a lot of the cases, we provide services to victims even if the crime isn't solved. If they're a victim, we will help them. But we charged a lot of cases also, and we had 883 victims of crime in cases that we are prosecuting right now. That's a huge number, and it's substantially higher. But I think that the crimes that have been targeted against Asian have always been there. They just haven't been so visible. And that's been, so I'm disturbed by the increase, but at the same time, when we know about it, we can help the people that have been victims.
I see. OK， 让我们进一段广告，广告之后马上回来。欢迎回到仇恨边缘。在和阿拉米达县地检官奥麦丽一起聊仇恨犯罪之前，让我们先来看一个短片。
Hi, my name is Nancy O'Malley, and I'm the District Attorney of Alameda County. During this period of unprecedented crisis, standing together and supporting each other as a community has never been more important. You know, we are the 4th most diverse county in the United States, but hate and racist-driven conduct is spreading as rapidly as the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's often felt most critically in Chinese communities around the county. The District Attorney's Office never stands idle in the face of hate speech. If the conduct is racist speech by an identified individual, we will engage with that individual on an official basis. But let me be clear, where hate speech leads to criminal activity driven by xenophobia, racism, or discrimination, my office will investigate and prosecute offenders. And we will protect all members of our community against hate-driven violence. There's no place in Alameda County for hate-motivated conduct or hate-driven words based on race, gender, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So I stand with county, city, and community leaders and call on all of our community, reject the racist speech, and let us stand together as a country, a state, and a county as we combat this deadly pandemic together.
好的，欢迎回来。Yeah, that video was very informative and educational. So why do you think we are seeing a surge of hate crime that targeting Asian women and elderly?
I think that it all started with Donald Trump. I mean, he didn't start the hate crimes against Asians, but I think that in all society, there's jealousy by one group against another if one group is being more prosperous or being more productive. And so I think that is just what happens in society. But when Donald Trump started attacking Asians and blaming China for the COVID virus, I think it gave permission to people that are ignorant and people who have hate in their heart to act out on that. And, because we know that there's always been a level of discrimination against Asian individuals and Muslims and other African Americans for sure. But all of a sudden there was permission to be so blatant. And that was how I believe it started. But what's really evolved now is sort of this horrible increase in crime where we have people driving around that are just looking for someone to attack or someone to kill. We had one case where this defendant just got released early from San Francisco and came to Alameda County, and he was just driving up and down the streets looking for someone, and he saw an elderly man who was taking his very early morning walk, and he got out and killed the man. Now, it's hard to know whether he was robbing him or he just killed him out of hatred, but I think that there's this unruly, disorderly violence that's being committed particularly against Asian individuals. And, there are a lot of myths that go attached with that. People think they're never going to tell anyone. Just go in their house, especially if they're older, that they would just go and stay in their house and not go outside again. And so part of our effort is to work with the community, especially the elders and seniors, about how to be safe on the street, how to be safe outside your home, walking with 2 or 3, again, wearing your jewelry inside, not carrying a lot of cash. And there's a lot we can do to help our community to, understand how to try to prevent crime from happening against them.
Yeah. Since we're talking about understand the crime and why it happened, so could you tell us about what's the differences between hate crime and hate incidents?
Well, hate incident is, let's say somebody goes by and pushes or says something inappropriately rude or something racist. Well, that would be a hate incident. But a crime is actually defined by law of what constitutes a crime. And so when there's something, if there's a physical touching, if there is a taking of property, then we would find that in the penal code. And there is a hate crime. The way it's written in California, it's not the easiest crime to prove, even though in our hearts and in our minds we believe that this crime was motivated by hatred for someone for their ethnicity or their gender or whatever one of the factors are. We have to prove that was what the reason was that person was selected was because of their race or their gender or their ethnicity or their sexual orientation. It's not always easy to do, but we found many ways to be able to put those cases together, the hate crime cases, by finding other incidents. So it isn't just one incident, but there are other times when somebody has attacked a person who's Asian, or other times when they've attacked someone who's African American or Muslim.
Okay, so when we prosecute a hate crime, we have to do a lot of background check and we have to know the motivation. So do we have a specific list, like we know what it takes to charge hate crime?
Sure. Well, one way is to be able to charge a hate crime is where somebody is, like just recently in Oakland, where someone drove up to a mosque and just all the people were coming out of their service and they opened fire on those people. So did they open fire on them because they were mad at somebody, or were they just trying to kill Muslims? And so we really have to dig. very infrequently does someone say, I'm doing this because you're Asian, or I'm doing this because you're black, or I'm doing this because you're a woman. And so we have to piece these cases together. And there isn't a list that says this, if this exists, that means it's a hate crime. If that exists, it's not a hate crime. That's not how it works. And so we just have to evaluate the totality of the circumstances.
Yeah, a lot of our audience, they don't understand why hate crime is so hard to charge. And could you tell, if hate crime happened, what a victim can do to provide, to help to prosecute hate crime successfully?
Well, the first thing is to report it. The second thing is to, to really be able to be thorough in what the explanation was. Did someone say something that made it look like this victim was being targeted because of their race or their gender? Do we have, again, does this person attack other people of the same race?
That's very useful information. Thank you so much. Let's take a break, and then we can talk about the future. 好，让我们先进一段广告，广告之后马上回来。欢迎回到仇恨边缘，让我们继续和阿拉米达县地检官奥麦丽一起来聊一聊如何预防、应对和停止仇恨犯罪。So, DA O'Malley, we know hate crime is very underreported, right? So, especially in Asian community, most of people might think, feel shameful when the things happen. Some people might think if they report it, the police wouldn't do anything about it. So could you tell us why it's still very important to report hate crime?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's important because if people are engaging in criminal behavior, especially violent behavior, without a consequence, then there's nothing to stop them from continuing. We also, put a lot of posters up in many languages that really focus on if somebody has done something to you, if you've been a victim of a hate crime, call us so we can do something about it. I remember when I was a prosecutor, when I was trying cases, I had a case of North Vietnamese who targeted South Vietnamese immigrants. And they went into their house and had guns, tied the grandma up, and that was a terrible thing. Yeah. Tied up the mom, tied up the young man who they followed home, and they stole all their money and their property. And the grandma and the mom refused to look up, and they would never looked at them. And when I asked the son, because I was prosecuting the case in court, and I asked the son, did your mom look up? No, she would never look at him. Why? Because the culture, like she wouldn't look him in the eye, and the grandma wouldn't look him in the eye. That's how the son described it. So we convicted him. The son was very bold, and we convicted the guy, and he went to prison. And afterwards, the mom and the grandma were appreciative, even though they were so scared. Yeah. So scared. Yeah. And so, there's a lot of cultural issues that we work with, especially for seniors, especially for people who have immigrated to America, and maybe they came from a country where the police were not your friend, and we try to explain that the police are here to help, and they won't hurt you, and they won't, whatever could happen. So a lot of it is education. Yes. And then just practicing safety rules. We now give out these what I call safety pendants, and they're all over Little Saigon and Chinatown, and they just wear around your neck, and if someone comes, you just pull this little tab, and it's a high-pitched shrill. Oh, and
it's air horn?
It's really like super high pitch, and then you just push it back in to stop it. But people that are robbing or people that are going to attack you, if they think that you've got this and they're going to attract attention, they're not going to pick on that person. It doesn't mean they'll stop, but they'll run away more often than not because they don't want to get caught. So we've been handing out hundreds of these protective pendants that I call them, to help people to feel safe. Like even, walking around with this device on, if somebody's driving around looking for who am I going to rob, oh, they've got that pendant on. I'm not going to rob them. I'll find someone who's, walking by themselves in the dark part of the street or something.
So what do you see in the future in preventing hate crimes?
Well, I think that we should have in school, I believe, that every student should be taught about the various cultures, the different cultures. So much that drives hate is ignorance. And it's people like the Donald Trumps of the world who, are so discriminatory in their language, especially with such a huge platform.
Yeah.
I think that, we have, as we elect people who look different, like just electing women, electing people of color, electing people who are Asian, and that becomes much more familiar, and the prejudice that exists is born in ignorance. And then when somebody gets to know a person or they see them or they see that culture, then that will start to subside, hopefully. And I think that, again, we start with children and work our way up so that we will have a generation where it doesn't matter from where people come. I mean, everybody in America is an immigrant,
yes,
from some level.
Right.
My family came from Ireland. They were immigrants. And so, I think that and even when my family came, they were not allowed to get jobs because there was discrimination against Irish. So, but I think that, the more we expose it and the more we educate and continue to educate, then the less we're going to see of hate crimes.
That's very, very educational and informative conversation with you. Thank you so much. Thanks
You're
for having
welcome.
this.
Thank you very much.
好，今天的节目就告一段落。仇恨边缘是一档聚焦反亚裔仇恨犯罪的访谈节目。我们今后还会请到更多的政界人士、社区领袖一起来探讨仇恨犯罪。我们也希望这个节目被更多需要了解和需要帮助的人看到。让我们一起共同努力，把周围变成一个充满爱而不是恨的地方。我是主持人张歆艺，我们下期节目见。正在收看节目的你，如果有任何问题想要问我们的来宾，欢迎在评论区留言，我们会仔细查看每一条评论，并联系该嘉宾帮忙解答。让我们共同努力，为停止仇恨犯罪贡献一份力量。